morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Now, one of the big questions facing women these days is career or family. Can you have both? And if not, which should you focus on first, or which potentially should you give up? It's a very serious personal discussion, but it's found its way into the comic book movie universe with the news that Scarlett Johansson is pregnant right as they're about to begin shooting the Avengers 2 Age of Ultron. Now, for Scarlett Johansson, this is wonderful news. She's just about to get married, they're going to have a family right away, and I'm sure she's very excited. But as far as Black Widow is concerned, this is the worst news possible. The character had tremendous momentum all of a sudden, not only because they're advertising and trying to get Captain America the Winter Soldier in the media, but her character has a very large role. She's been getting more press than Chris Evans, who plays the lead, supposedly. But I think to some degree, this is almost her movie as well. And I think fans have been very excited about that. And Scarlett Johansson has been championing a Black Widow standalone film since she got the part. She's been very vocal about it, but only recently has Marvel Studios begun to back her up somewhat. Kevin Feige, we discussed this, teased a potential Black Widow solo movie, that they were indeed thinking about this. And we said, was this maybe perhaps more tease than legitimate, pre-production or development? But it's still, not every Marvel character is getting a tease. This is the first tease for a standalone, female movie with a female lead. So that was very exciting. And so there was also some speculation that she would have a bigger role in the Avengers Age of Ultron because of all this momentum behind her and her popularity as a character. And I do agree with all of this. I think Scarlett Johansson does a great job as the Black Widow. I loved her I thought she was surprisingly good in Iron Man 2, that she was excellent in the Avengers, and I think she looks very good in this upcoming trailer. I think she's really done a great job of balancing the sex appeal that's necessary for this kind of character to have, while still being friendly and relatable and admirable to women. That's a very hard, difficult balance to pull off, and I think she's doing it. So I've been very excited about the Black Widow character in general, more so than I ever was when she was a comic book character, because remember, we're talking about a character with really no power set. So the fact that Joss Whedon and Scarlett Johansson, I think it's really a team effort here, and the Captain America filmmakers obviously have been able to elevate the character to this degree is really commendable. But now, will it be backburnered? Now, I don't know exactly how big of a role she was going to have in the Avengers anyway, the Avengers sequel, because Elizabeth Olsen's coming into the picture. Big new character, has a power set, and Joss Whedon's discussed that he really wants to play up the idea of magic versus science, with the Scarlet Witch, Elizabeth Olsen's character, being the magic part. And obviously, I think, not only the very science-heavy characters you have already on the Avengers, but Ultron is the scientific villain. So I think that probably will be front and center, and this won't change that. And maybe they can alter the production schedule so that Scarlett Johansson can do her scenes right away. I'm not quite sure of the medical situation here. I don't know if it would hurt a baby at this stage to be in a harness, to be jumping around and doing these things. I don't know. I think that I personally, as a woman, would be like, let's not risk it. As much as I love these movies and I know how important it is for my career, I don't want to potentially injure my baby. But I think that I think this is a very difficult situation. While I'm sure everybody at Marvel Studios was wonderful to Scarlett Johansson, was like, congratulations, here's a bunch of baby Marvel-themed stuff. Oh wait, I hope it's not a girl because we don't have any for women. But Black Widow is supposed to be changing that. And I think that this kind of just brings in a reality to this situation as to why the studio executives can get away with saying, oh, well, look, Scarlett Johansson, you see, this is what happens when you have a female superhero. She gets pregnant. It's not like a guy where we'd be like, congratulations, okay, why doesn't your wife sit down and now we can go shoot these action sequences? Instead, Scarlett Johansson has to sit down, and they're like, oh, well, crap, we can't give Black Widow a desk job, can we? I guess maybe they could go that way. And she's like, well, Black Widow's just good. This is not worthy of her attention. But I think, and also, when she's doing her publicity then for the Avengers 2, she should have had the baby by then, I think, because, it's about a year away, but she will have just had the baby then, and everyone will be talking about the baby, and maybe they can control that, but it's like, you can't separate, this personal aspect of like, oh, women are the mother of children, and how are you going to reconcile that with the kick-ass women are superheroes and can fight alongside men? It brings a discussion to the forefront, which I think needs to be had eventually, and it can't be avoided, but perhaps this isn't the best timing for it when we still haven't gotten the female superheroes off the ground. But nothing can be done about it. Scarlett Johansson, as I said, it's a wonderful thing for her personally, and I think that no one should look at it, no one should say, oh, this child should be forever known as the one who ruined female characters in superhero comics. This just means that Elizabeth Olsen has to work even harder, and if they cast someone to play Captain Marvel, aka Carol Danvers, she's going to have to chip in too. And I guess, Scarlett Johansson can't do all the heavy lifting by herself. Why shouldn't she be able to have a baby as well? So let's see if Scarlett Johansson can have it all. But I'm wondering how you guys feel. Do you care that, Black Widow is pregnant? And, would it bother you during the publicity tour if she was like, here are my baby photos? Or I just had this baby, or I'm still pregnant. How would you feel about it? Does this make you feel any different about this? And do you think studio executives will use this against maybe, female superhero movies going forward? And are you as big a Black Widow fan as I am, or do you like this is a moot point? I don't care about this character. Bring on Elizabeth Olsen. Someone should be able to do a better job. All right, so that's the first story of the day. The second story, interestingly also deals with women, but in a very different, tragic way. I don't know if you've heard of the Slates for Sarah situation. She was included in the in memoriam section of the Oscars. Some people, I mentioned this in my review of the Oscars. She kind of tacked on at the end. But new details are being brought to light, and I didn't want to focus on so much the memoriam for Sarah, which is very important, Sarah Jones, the assistant camera who was killed recently, but I really wanted to focus on the beginning discussion about safety on sets, and perhaps the fact that Hollywood takes its behind-the-camera talent that's not top tier for granted. So basically, there's a very good article that came out yesterday in the Hollywood Reporter. I'll put a link to it in the video description, where they've really been doing some investigative reporting into what happened here on this set that caused this assistant camera woman to lose her life when she was hit by a train, as were a number of people on the set. And I'll give you the short story of it, but it's a very good article, and I do suggest you read it. But basically, they were shooting on train tracks on a bridge, which meant you couldn't just run to the left or run to the right. You had to basically, they set up a situation where if a train was coming, and that's what happened, you had to run towards the train to get to the entrance to the bridge to get off of it. And the filmmakers and the crew certainly just ended up not having the time. And they had to basically hold on to this bridge for dear life, and for some people it worked out, and tragically for Sarah Jones it did not. But some other crew members were very seriously injured. One woman had her arm snapped in half and the bone come out of her arm. I believe it was the makeup artist. And she's an eyewitness account in this article. At the same time, because this was a low-budget guerrilla filmmaking production, William Hurt was on, no less. William Hurt was the star. He was there that day. They were not given permission. They did not get I forget the term right now. They didn't get the permit. They didn't get the permit to shoot here. They did not have any safety personnel with them. They apparently did not even have a medic on set. But they shot there anyway. And Sarah Jones even told her father that the night before she died, apparently, her father also gives an interview, her parents do, that she was concerned about how low budget the set was, and that she felt that it was not particularly on the up and up, and made her a little nervous. And as you can see, that resulted in her death. So I think this is a very important discussion to have, and it's being investigated by the state as a negligent homicide, actually, which could lead to a very big legal case and really drag this into the spotlight for Hollywood. I think deservedly so. But also, I was talking about this to Matt Colby, who is the DP and editor. He edits about half of the material here on Beyond the Trailer, and everything's in front of a green screen. He shoots. He's been on the show before. We talked, I think, about a year or so ago about one of his Kickstarter projects. And Matt said that he pointed me in the direction of a documentary that was made by cinematographer Haskell Wexler. And it's called Who Needs Sleep? And I'll put a link to that below in the video description as well. I watched it yesterday. It's fascinating. And it talks about how even back when Pleasantville was made, a crew member was killed driving home because he didn't get enough sleep. They were working him too hard on the set. And it caused a big movement with everybody in Hollywood trying to say, okay, we need to have regulated hours. You can't make people work 18, 20-hour days in a row. It's actually dangerous, endangering their lives. And how that gained momentum, it gained national coverage. But then Hollywood squashed it. It very quietly went away. Haskell Wexler, this Oscar-winning cinematographer, takes it upon himself to investigate why that is and why Hollywood is not doing more with set safety. And so I think when you couple that situation with it rearing its ugly head here once again, and also we've heard horrible stories in the press about stunt people losing their lives, I think that I'm just amazed that this is a conversation that has to be keep being had. And I would also warn anyone here who wants to work in the film industry, it touches on this in the documentary, that it's a very glamorous industry. It seems very glamorous, but don't risk, nothing is worth risking your life for. And Sarah Jones's parents say that. They say, we've been told that it's a common practice to take a risky shot, to steal a shot. It's called stealing a shot, and to get this, this great scene, and everyone can brag about how, that was dangerous, but look at the great shot we got. And the Joneses say it's not worth anyone's life. It was not worth Sarah's life. And I would agree with that. And I think, William Hurt and the director is lawyered up. The producers have lawyered up. They've all, completely gone mum. The fact that William Hurt wouldn't speak up, and all of these, when you read the article, you'll see that everybody on the crew realized that they were in a potentially dangerous situation. And the film, I think that Hollywood would argue, well, you didn't have to take the job, you could have left. But I think that, these jobs, working in the film industry isn't, a consistent job. You don't have a lot of job security. It's very political. And I think people, Hollywood uses that against its crew quite criminally in this matter, literally criminally. So I'm very curious to see how this develops, and I hope that it at very least, reminds people not to let themselves be taken advantage of by, the Mr. Potters of the world. I used that analogy just the other day because I've said this before on the show. When I used to watch It's a Wonderful Life when I was little, I thought no one could be that mean. But I think that when you get out into the real world, you see that quite a number of people are that mean and heartless and cruel. And you'll be the one who's dead. This director who put everybody's life at risk is alive, and Sarah Jones is dead. All right, so that's the second story of the day. The third I want to touch on quickly is this. I brought it up a little bit when I was talking about Movie Math about Son of God, and that's that Paramount is so concerned about Noah and how it's rubbing religious groups the wrong way that they have they put out a synopsis on Yahoo apparently, and they said this movie is inspired by the Bible. And I think that it's a very interesting route to go in, basically just distancing itself from religion when I think that was probably a selling point to the studio to make the movie. And I'm curious to see if you don't have that base, the Christian Christian community, if you don't have the church groups supporting your film as the base, just like comic book movies need that fanboy base, how is Noah going to do in the long run? And I also feel though this is somewhat of again a moot issue, because I think that this movie was dead in the water as soon as they cast Russell Crowe. I think Russell Crowe still can turn in a good performance. I still think he does a pretty good job. You can depend on him to be Russell Crowe. But at the same time, I think he's proved again and again that he's just no longer a box office powerhouse, or even just box office regular house. I think that audiences in large, the mainstream audience, just isn't into Russell Crowe anymore. He never recovered from the cell phone incident, and I think that by casting him in this film, it has Robin Hood written all over it to me. And Robin Hood, by the way, that was a pretty good film, but I think it did better overseas. What movie these days doesn't do better overseas? It never really made the kind of money it needed to get a sequel, and I'm just surprised that I just can't believe that a studio executive would look at Darren Aronofsky, again, this is also risky, it's his first film, but I just can't believe that Darren Aronofsky and the studio executives would go and look at Russell Crowe's box office track record and be like, hey, you know what? Let's hire this guy ourselves. I'd be like, whoa, if he wants to be a supporting role, that's fine. But I think Emma Watson even, from the Harry Potter films, she hasn't been able to pull anybody in. Jennifer Connelly can't pull anybody in. Logan Lerman can't pull anybody in. You have no one. You have people who actually seem to repel moviegoers. So I'm just curious how that's going to affect the end game, the discussion. Will people say, oh, Noah was well, people should say, and I don't think Noah is going to do particularly well, but I think people should say Noah wasn't successful because Russell Crowe is box office poison. Or they should say perhaps because Darren Aronofsky, it looks to me from the trailer at least, we'll see how the movie turns out, maybe didn't tell the greatest story. That seems a little muddled and not cohesive. But instead, they might just pin it on religion and be like, oh, well, we didn't follow the Bible exactly. Although at the same time, if you're going to tell a story about the Bible, why would you change it? It's like, we can argue all day long about changing comic book stories, but the Bible is a different kind of book. All right, so I'm just curious how you guys feel about that. What do you think of Noah overall? If he doesn't succeed, whose fault do you think it is? Does it matter to you if it's religiously accurate? I have to tell you, even as someone who, as I've said, believes in God, not so much in organized religion, I don't see why I would waste my time watching a movie about Noah that isn't even faithful to the source material. What is Noah if not a biblical story? So that's my take on it. So even as someone who wouldn't go for the religious reasons, I still would take issue with it. Although I wasn't so thrilled that Russell Crowe was in it. So there you go. All right, so this the question of the day. I really like this question. It's from the Movie Review Hunk. Okay, it says, question, Charlie from Belgium. Hello, Charlie in Belgium. It says, long-time viewer, first-time questioner. You've always been my number one source, if not the only one, for movie news. Thank you, Charlie. That means a lot. I appreciate that. But this is why I didn't pick that because of that. I picked, the smiley face, this is so nice. But Charlie wrote a really interesting question that I wanted to touch on. And he said, I'm an aspiring filmmaker. But as you said, you shouldn't limit yourself to just one craft. And that's true. I discussed this in another morning movie news. I think you're only hurting yourself if you limit yourself to one potential career path. You have to be open for where opportunity and luck strikes. And so he says, so I thought about what else I would be good in. Good for you, Charlie. And it's marketing and movie distribution. Love that choice. I love that you didn't just go kind of tied to the left or the right of being a filmmaker. You legitimately chose another I think, very credible path in film where you could really forge a career and would be a more stable job. So I think that's a great idea for a backup profession. So Charlie says, I just understand how to distribute or market a movie without thinking about it so much it comes naturally. So Charlie feels he has a natural talent there. Great, I love it. But I was wondering, how does someone specialize in those two categories, and what schools does one have to go to study in order to get work in such crafts? And it gives me a smiley face, so it's very nice. Okay, so great question. Of course you would, I think, marketing classes, kind of study the things you would to go into advertising. I think that's very important. And if you go into film school, a good film school that has a good business aspect to it, and if you're trying to make sure you have backup careers, when you pick your film school, make sure that they don't just focus on the craft of filmmaking, but also the business of movie making. A good school will have producing classes, distribution classes, where you can understand these things. I took those classes, and also if you're interested in that, USC and UCLA are very good film schools, very strong business components to them, and they're right in Los Angeles, and they are actively recruited from within the movie industry. And one of the reasons they're actively recruited from is because of internships. You're already there in Los Angeles. So people, you can go and take an internship either during the school year or over the summer. They're already kind of, even while in school, they're able to start to work their way into Hollywood. And that's always important. But obviously, Charlie, you're in Belgium. So, I would consider applying to a college, a filmmaking school in Los Angeles or New York. There are some mostly indie distributors here. But, you kind of just want to get into the field. So if you want to study something like that, take the classes like that, producing classes, advertising classes. But at the same time, I think the most important thing you can do is an internship. Spread out your internships. Do one summer or one semester, maybe with something that focuses on filmmaking. Of course, also make your own films. But then also see if you can get in a publicity department, or if you can get it, the marketing. If you can get also maybe into distribution. I'm sure not a lot of people are saying, I want to be an intern in the distribution department. So I'm sure they'd be thrilled to have you. Go find those spots where maybe they aren't as crowded, they aren't as competitive, and where you can really maybe shine and have a great opportunity that could end up being a career that doesn't end up being a second choice, that you find very inspiring. And you can see how important it is to movies that they have good marketing and distribution. Why don't you go intern at DreamWorks Animation, Charlie? They sure could use the help of any kind, because they have a horrible publicity department. And as we talked about with John Carter over at Disney, that movie was killed by marketing. So marketing is crucial. And when you're in marketing, you get to go visit the sets, you get to talk to the directors, you get to plan how you're going to do the trailers, what's going to happen. You very much are involved. Don't just think that, I'll have to sit on the sidelines where everybody else has fun. You'll have a great time, and we all enjoy trailers, obviously. So I think this is a great choice, Charlie. So my advice to you is to take the appropriate courses, but overall, you need to intern, start to meet people in these departments. That's great on-the-job training. And I think I think that you're really smart, and I'm glad you liked my advice. I'm glad you're taking it to heart, and I hope it works out for you. And I think you're being very smart about your future. All right, thank you for the question, Charlie. Everybody, write down below what you think of today's 3 top stories, the viewer question, and anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.